after you've established your background and you're happy with that, then you decide, say you don't want to put the bluebirds in there. Maybe you're just having something about bluebirds. Maybe you'd rather do a cardinal. I don't really care. The key is, what I'm going to show you on technique for painting birds is universal in all animals. It's just the overpainting is different, what color you use, but the technique's the same. So you may want to practice sketching. In fact, before you and I meet next week, I will have my sketch in here, and all you want to do is just take your charcoal and sketch in like this, get the basic shape, not a hard line edge form, and that's all you need, something simple, okay? Hi, welcome back to the Yarnell School of Fine Art. Certainly glad you could join me today. We have one more session here on this beautiful bluebird painting, and I hope you've been having fun with it so far. You can see the process is not as difficult as it may seem, but it does have to be done in proper order. Well, today, yes, we're going to do the birds finally. You should have your post finished and some of your flowers, and you should just be fairly satisfied now. But you also should have a good sketch there. And notice that the sketch, this bird is facing us. And I don't know where you live, if you have many bluebirds, but bluebirds can get really puffy and big, and they look kind of swelled up. Well, in the wintertime, in the springtime, or certain times of the day, the way the wind hits their feathers, they look really puffed out. Well, this one is, you can see, he's pretty wide. This one's a little narrower. Sometimes they're not so puffy. But I like them better when they're like that. So I have my own reason for doing this, because someone may write in and say, well, the bluebirds I see aren't quite that big. Well, they aren't in their just normal sitting down state. But when they're perched on something, and that's the way they look. They get kind of billowy. All right, so here's the way this works. There's a couple of 3 different underpainting stages, and then simple highlighting. The first thing to do is take the dark head. Now, you notice there's not a whole lot up there on the blue part, but it's just enough to give you the suggestion it's a bluebird. We're going to take blue and purple and a little sienna and just darken that in there and there. And we're going to do both birds simultaneously. You want to paint inside the sketch slightly. Okay, and I'm going to use my number 4 sable brush, and my number 4 flat. Okay, both the flat and the round. You need those, all right? Well, actually, we probably ought to start with the round one. Now, take ultramarine blue, a little burnt sienna, and a little touch of purple. It's going to be on the blue side. It just has to be. All right? Now, all you want to do is just fill in the shape of the head, or just wherever any blue might be. And I'm staying inside the sketch. Don't go outside the sketch. There's that, and here's the tail down here. Now again, this same technique applies for whatever bird that you want to do. If it's a bluebird, if it's a cardinal, if it's a whatever they might be, just underpaint with a dark value, whatever the finished color is going to be, and then overpaint with the highlight color. Now we do this one. Actually, you might want to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. That probably doesn't sound very good. But just do this. Block in the beak, since it's a very dark color already. I have a whole series of bird feeders outside my studio that I put up, especially in the winter, but I keep them up year round, but especially in the winter I try to attract all the songbirds and the birds that stay around. And right now I'm planning for some large bird art shows that I like to do and other wildlife shows. And I have a lot of bluebirds around right now, and when you see them, they really get puffed up when they're trying to stay warm. Okay, now here. I have a lot of blackbirds now. They finally found the food, and they're swarming, and trying to get rid of the blackbirds is a difficult challenge. So if any of you have any suggestions on that, let me know. I'd like to know how to get rid of the blackbirds without hurting them. Okay, now take your beak there, so I'm being very careful. Anywhere there's going to be a blue color, I paint it underneath with this real dark, this is almost a navy. Folks, this is a very simple, easy process. But you have to be accurate. Now, I'm not going to belittle the fact that there's not some skill involved here, but you can learn that skill just by simply being careful, okay, and not getting in a big hurry. Now then, I think I'm going to put just a little bit more darkness right here. While I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and block in his feet because they're dark also. They have this miraculous ability to be able to hang on to things that you would. Every once in a while I have my door open. In fact, almost every day now I've got my door open at the studio with no screen on it, and a bird flies in. And yesterday I was in my studio, and a female cardinal flew in and hit the wall and knocked her out, and I went and picked her up and took her outside. It was the neatest thing. I felt sorry for her. She finally recovered and did fine. But they are so tiny. These birds are not near the size that they may look sometimes. But when the wind hits them, their feathers fluff up. Okay? Now, after you've got all the dark on there, now we're going to go to the white area. Now, where the white area is, remember we've talked about, like on the post there, you need to have an underpainting of a bluish gray, purplish gray, brownish gray or something. So what I'm going to do is take the same color, add a little white to it, just a little, and we'll make a grayish tone, sort of a bluish gray. And so wherever there is going to be white, you do this. So you just kind of block in and you overpaint it. In other words, go beyond where you think it might be. Okay, so in other words, I'll paint back in. Don't go outside the line. This kind of brings back memories when you were a kid, doesn't it? Your mom or your dad telling you, don't color outside the line. Well, that's really the truth here. Don't go outside the line. Okay, now I've got all those in there. Now we've got to do the red part for the breast area. I'll switch to a little bigger brush because I just have more control if I have a bigger brush, and you will too. Now again, this is the biggest bluebird. Now I wanted him to be a little bigger because he's dominant, he's a little closer. He's just the one on guard. And I have noticed that a lot of the times the birds have especially quail and other groupings of birds, seems like there's always one that's sort of on watch. He's sort of the sentinel, the one that's in charge. And I'm going to have to say maybe that's what he is. Okay, the underpainting for this guy is burnt sienna, red, and purple. Now this is going to look kind of funny to you, but see, it's a dark, rich, it's a very sort of a maroon, burgundy color. And there it is. Dry brush this right on. Just filling in the space. Now remember, when you get to the edge, don't go out beyond the line. Stay well within the line. Notice where I'm holding my brush. Holding it back. Same thing on this one. Now these could be male and female, or actually probably not, because they're both the same color. Most of your females are a lot less intense. Like your cardinals, your female cardinals they're beautiful, I love them, the colors, but they're very more subtle color. Your bright red cardinals stand out, of course, anywhere. Most species of birds are like that. They have the male is the brightest of the colors. Okay, now so notice how I'm dry brushing. Folks, if I can give you any advice at all here, be sure you use a dry brush stroke. Just kind of skim the surface so that you don't get a whole lot of hard edges. That's critical, all right? Now, once you've got the underpainting on there and they're just there, while those are drying, let's go ahead and put a few of the weeds down in here. This is kind of a fun thing to do. Take your script brush, and I'm going to take a little bit of phthalo yellow green, just pure phthalo yellow green. Okay. Roll it around until you form a point. Start at the bottom And I want you to come up like this. See how you come up and across the posts into the dark value areas of the weeds, the grass, and the flowers. You can add some darker colored ones in a minute. Now that you've got your fence posts finished, you'll probably need to put a few darker ones in there. But you see I'm going like this in a complete circle, big movements. Excuse me. Make some nice tall ones. And sometimes you can just be a little creative. See, I kind of bend a couple over that have a little bit more body to them. Okay. Take a little bit of green and maybe a little burnt sienna. Now remember, using a very fluid color here. Put some darker ones here. Okay, now see what this does? This kind of sets things back. It sets the post down and gives this a little more, oh, you might say, a finished look. It looks more settled. All right, now these should be getting dry enough now that we can get into working. Now I'm going to show you some different positions that a lot of artists like to use when they're doing these things, and I'm going to have to, for the sake of our show, kind of keep it up in front of us so you can see it, but I am just going to give you some information. Sometimes you can take this and hold it in your lap or just put it down like this, and especially if you're working with the acrylics, and I don't even know if they can close in because of the angles, and I'll get back up here in a minute. But sometimes it's easier for me to put this in my lap and do some of the work like this with my hand. Yeah, you can see that okay. I think I'll try a little bit of this, okay? Because you just have more control. So now I'm going to take a little blue and white. Start with the white and a little bit of blue. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to skim across the top like this. And now this is where, if you got to make the bird a little bigger, this is where you do it. Now you can kind of go out to the full outer edge of the shape there. See, I'm just kind of dry brush around there. This is where you make your adjustments on shape and form. Okay, good. Now go down his back here. Okay, see, that's one way you can kind of make this work. Now we're still not ready for the highlighting. Okay, so, and there's not a whole lot of blue showing here, if you'll notice, because of the way he's sitting. If you could see his back, you would see a whole lot more blue, but since he's facing us, you mostly see the red colored breast or the orange colored breast area right now. Now I'm dry brushing. Folks, I cannot tell you enough about how important it is when you're doing birds, when you're doing animals. Dry brush is the word. That's the key. And it doesn't matter if you're doing watercolor, if you're doing oil, it doesn't matter which medium you're using. Pretty much, this is how it's done. By the way, if you have a sketch, a charcoal sketch like I've got, and some of it's still showing and it kind of bugs you, remember you could take your charcoal or your paper towel and just wipe that off, because sometimes that charcoal sketch, even though it doesn't affect the paint so much, excuse me, it affects the shape of the bird, because sometimes it looks like part of the paint, and you want to, and sometimes you get it in there and you might make it too big or something. It just confuses you mostly. All right, now let's go down here to this little guy. He's a little smaller, but we're going to increase his size some now by just pulling out. And just dry brushing, that's all we're doing. Now, put a little more blue in that. Now you can see, folks, this is a fairly painstaking process, and it's important not to get frustrated with it. Just stay with it, don't get in a hurry, and you'll do very, very well. Now, wherever the eye is, so you've already darkened it, all you got to do is make a little outline around the eye. And so see, this process isn't going to be for everyone. Those of you that don't like a lot of detail work, you may just be sitting there saying, oh man, I can't wait till we get back to the landscapes. You know, well, that's fine. And I hope to have something for everyone. That's my goal is in this mission as an instructor here, is to help all of you get something. Okay. Now, once you get the basics, you look at it and you say, okay, now where do I go from here? I'd like to go ahead and start building some of the whites. So now you take the white, and when you load, folks, I'm loading, but I'm flattening out the end of the brush. I'm going to see if they'll close in on this. I flatten out the brush so that it's kind of flat on the end. See how you can kind of take your finger and flatten it? See if I can find something to hold it against where you can see. There we go. See how I flattened it out? This is a round brush. Let me round it. See, when it's round, it looks just like a sharp point. But when you squish it with your finger, see, you can flatten it out. All right, that's the kind of shape that you want it in when you do the animals, okay, or the birds. So now you take your white, flatten out your brush, either by flattening it out on your board there or whatever. Now we come up here and we go right underneath his beak, and we put this little bit of white there, and we kind of feather it out. And you see, this is the area right up underneath his body, and we're going to bring the body up a little bit more. Okay? Little touches of white here and there, just to accent it just a little bit. Along the outer edge down here, there's a little, and then right at the base. You can see little by little. Beginning to shape up. Okay, do the similar thing to this one. He has a little white underneath his chin, front part of his breast area just right there, and then kind of underneath the eye. See how that works? And down here a little bit. Really, it's fairly simple, but it's time consuming, and it sometimes you just have to be patient with yourself, and you'll get it. Now I'm anxious to get to the main part of the bird, because what happens once you get the main part, then you go back and you look at him and you say, okay, now I need to brighten up the blue or just the head or whatever, but let's get to the breast area, the main, that pink or that reddish tone. And you'll notice there, it's what I use mostly is orange with a little red in it, or maybe sometimes just pure orange. You can even use a little sienna. But notice I've allowed some of the dark areas to show through, so don't make it solid, okay? It's important that you squish your brush out so that it's flat on the end, and then you're in business. All right, so you take pure orange, maybe with a touch of red, flatten the brush out, and start at the top here, like this. Well, you might want to start up here around the eye. Okay, now we start up here. Go right out to the edge. Now notice how I'm dry brushing, and that's how I get the accent. Notice the dry brush stroke, pulling down, following the shape of the body. Really a neat feeling to be able to do this and have accurate. See, I'm letting some of the dark values come through. Now all you're going to do is kind of find the shape. Then once you establish the shape, then we come back and highlight it. See how that works? Now all of a sudden you start having a bird that starts to look like a bird. Now, sometimes, like I said, I'll put that down in my lap and I will hold it so I have a better angle. It's kind of hard to do here on the show because mostly where I'm sitting here, but you can just put it down on the floor. You can put it wherever you want. Notice now I'm using a quick dry brush to establish his front. Now, a lot of times, wildlife artists will start at the base, the bottom of the bird, and work up so that you're constantly overlapping your strokes. That sometimes is a real... But on something this small, it's not as necessary. Now, see, I'm just dry brushing. Now, once you've gotten this part on, then we start gradually bringing everything up to the brightness that you want it to be. Okay, and that's very important now that you make that decision. For instance, what I'll probably do now is I'll take this and I'll turn it sideways. This is an important thing. And I'll take orange and white now, maybe a little red, and right on the outer edge of the breast here. You probably can't see this, so I'm just going to do the best I can here. See, I'm going to start highlighting this to where you could see the true bright color where the sun's hitting him. See, it's time now to be very careful about not covering up all the darkness. See how nice that begins to look? You just start building the highlight now. Now, I have to say, we probably won't get every single little thing done here. It's not important. That's your job. My job is to show you. So if you don't get it quite as bright as you want it, then you just keep bringing it up there. And this is where you start adding. See, I'm adding a little another highlight. See how nice and bright that is? Skip over here where there's a little area on the breast right there where there's a little indentation in the feathers. So you go work around that. You leave that available there. Just kind of a swish to suggest their highlight feathers. Now if you just take white and orange and go right on the very edge, see how nice that brightens him up? Makes him really stand out, gives him that three-dimensional form. Now you don't do that all over him, you just do it on this outer edge. Now we're cooking. See how cool that is? He starts to come out little by little. Now let's brighten up the blue part on his head. Just take a little white, a little bit of blue, and try to make that a little bit brighter. Again, I'm going to hold this sideways so I can see this better. But I definitely want this blue to pop out now. And the way you do that is by just putting it on a little brighter. And you may have to hit that a couple of times, like I mentioned. See how nice that shows up? Makes his head stand out, gives him a little more character. Okay. Same thing with this one. A little on his back there. See how beautiful that is? That is just so exciting to watch this develop. Now I'm going to take the pure white. Maybe you can add a little touch of yellow to it if you want to. But I like to get in here with the pure white to really get that little sparkle underneath his chin and his beak. Maybe just a little bit right there. You can see it's those real clean, sharp, brighter values that really give him that sunlit effect. Now I'm going to skip right out there on the edge, see there? Put this real thin, sort of like the wind's whipping around and blowing some of his little feathers around. That's really what you're trying to achieve here. Just a little bit of interest and movement in his body. See how we're doing that? Isn't that beautiful? Just a little bit more. I want to put a little bit brighter on his breast area right there on the very front. Gonna puff him out a little, make him look a little more sunlit. See how that's working? Little by little, folks, we're getting that. We're almost there, in fact. You can actually quit just whenever you get that stroke that says, oh, that's the one I was waiting for. You'll know. I can't really give you a formula for that, but you'll know when you've got that stroke that says, ah, that's the one. You know, that's the one I was looking for, or whatever. Now I just highlight the edge of the tail. And there are some places like right here where you see this little opening. Well, that's going to be where part of the feather comes down, so, or the wing. So you do have to make certain adjustments, and that's what I'm going to do here. Sometimes you come back with a little darks to kind of finish it out. And generally right on the very top of his head, I'll take pure white with just a little sliver. I mean a thin sliver right on the edge, just like this. And maybe right on the top of the beak to accent it. See how nice that brings them out and gives them three-dimensional form? Same thing on this one. It looks just like the sun is hitting it, and then a little dot in the eye for the little glow. A little more brighter on his neck area there. Folks, you can see now what you have to do at this stage is just kind of go through and find the areas that you want to brighten or to dull, or whatever it is that you're trying to do, okay? Isn't this exciting? Now compare the two. Of course they're not the same. They're very different. This one's just a little bit, not quite as detailed in terms of the professional quality, folks. That's because this is what I do. I'm teaching it and not doing it in my studio. But I'm going to give you a little word of warning. What I recommend is that you spend another 30 or 40 minutes kind of simply detailing out your birds, kind of adjusting the feathers, adding some minor highlights, anything to just kind of bring them out. But again, the greatest thing I can tell you, or the best advice, is remember the 3 Ps. Don't piddle, play, or putter, because of all the things that you could destroy in it instantly. It's a bird or an animal by clogging up the little pockets of negative space, the dark areas, where you lose the depth that you really work so hard to get, okay? And then finally, when you get ready to finish this thing, all you have to do is just take pure color for a pure white, pure blue, or a little, in the flowers, pure red, just touches to accent it, okay? And I really hope you have fun finishing up this painting. It also makes a great gift to give to someone. Well, next time we're going to start a brand new painting, so I hope you can join us. God bless you. Stay inspired, keep painting, and I'll see you again real soon on another Yarnell School of Fine Art.